Hello, everyone. It is Cheryl Hickerson with Females in Finance, and I'm so happy to see some faces. We have some more that are coming in the room because I didn't see them signing in. I know quite a few of the individuals here, and then we have some new faces as well. But we have Steph Bogan here today. So excited, almost can't stand it. Steph is Chief Possibility Officer at Limitless Advisor Coaching. She is, I feel like my voice of reason on Twitter. I feel like I retweet all of her stuff, and I'm trying not to look stalkerish when I'm doing it, but we're friends.
Cheryl, she's great. Yeah.
But she knows that I'm out there going, yes, I agree with that. Yes, what she said.
Cheryl
Yes.
and I are like doing like. I like your stuff. You like
I know. It's like a total love fest, but I love the way Steph's brain thinks about things because there's a lot of times what we're going to talk about today is mindset.
my husband would totally take issue with that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So our mindsets can either be a really big part of our business that helps us, or it can be a really big hindrance. We have a tendency to get in our own way. I hear many of you when you come and do discovery calls with me and we talk, one of the questions I want to give you, I've set you up with an example of something that's very common in our calls. And this is not going to sound weird at all to Steph. She does this for a living, but many of you will come to me and say something that sounds like this. We'll be talking about financial services or financial technology for those of you who are on the tech side of it. And you'll say something that sounds a lot like this when I say, tell me about your greatness. You almost always giggle when I say greatness. And I always stop and I go, why do you say that? There is a wonderful, beautiful poem by Susie Kazem, who's an Egyptian-American poet. And she wrote a poem called, about remember your greatness. And I actually have it on to remind myself, remember your greatness. I have it every day right in front of me, because the idea behind it is you're born with all the possibility right there inside of you. It's literally right there. And then Steph's job is to bring it out. But when I ask you about that greatness and you start to tell me, this is what you'll say. And I love it because I can almost quote every one of you. Well, I love to help, fill in the blank, whoever your client is, with their fill in the blank. And I'll say, great. Tell me some of the things you've done to sort of what's some of the attribution to that. Well, I wrote a book about 3 years ago, but that, and you'll wave it off. But I'm always amazed. I'm like, stop, hold up. You wrote a book. How have I known you 5 years? You've written a book. And they'll go, yeah, I'm on to other things. So what I hear is I solved cancer, but I'm on to world peace. Okay. So I'm going to tell you right now, when I meet with male advocates, they love to tell me about their book, their article, their podcast, you name it, the work that they're doing for, whatever, fill in the blank. And I think that that's where Steph comes in today, and why when I approached her team, Steph, just so you know, is one of our sponsors at Females in Finance. She makes a lot of it possible in what we do today. So the possibility that she goes on truly limitless from who she is. But when I asked them, would somebody be, would she be willing to do a network up? Her team jumped in like, yes, absolutely. So Steph's joining us from Vegas, I believe, at the Market Council. She has to speak this afternoon. Is that correct?
I do. Yeah. I had to, like I was telling Cheryl, hotels are not really, they need to redesign hotels so that there's because everybody used to be on their phone in their hotel room and that was it. Now everybody's on Zoom and you have the view with the bed or the view with the curtain. Those are your two amazing choices. So I chose the curtain, obviously.
I love that. I love that.
I have like this cold or something. So I will at some point just start sneezing.
Well, join all of us. That's okay. My neighbor's mowing his lawn in Missouri, December 6th. It's December 6th. Yeah. We had snow a week and a half ago, but he's mowing right now.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case. He has an issue with the leaves. I think it's his OCD, but Mike he is a policeman. So he's a first responder. So I give him that. Yeah, I know. I'm always like, give him the benefit of the doubt because he does help our community, but drives me a little crazy. All right. So with that, I kind of want to turn it over to Steph and let her spend some time with us talking about, could you set us up like the work that you do, how you help professionals today?
Yeah. So look, our work, our coaching is a little bit different. Traditionally you have the practice management consultant, and I did that for 20, plus years, and I got really good at going in and telling people what they need to do. Hey, this is what I've observed. right? Parachute in here, go change these 19 things. And so we really understand the business of the business, right? From strategy, all the way through to sale and acquisition. But there's another piece, coaching by contrast to consulting is the opposite, right? It's not directive. It's inquisitive, right? It's curiosity. How do it's not, hey, this is not ideal. You should, focus on one client, just do this. Here's how you're going to do it. Here's the winning formula, is very different than tell me what you think is holding you back from doing that, right? What is it that, to Cheryl's point, we're not, for the most part, shameless self-promoters. We've sort of been taught and conditioned, most women over time, right? Especially like when I grew up, right? And I grew up in a trailer park, crazy mom and a PTSD dad. Like there was no prominent place for me. There was just try to stay out of the hellscape and not have bad things happen. And so we tend to be conditioned, right? Male advisors still have overwhelming propensity to look at the male and talk to the male, even though they know full well there are two people. They're not, the intent isn't bad. It's just that they're not conscious to that behavior. And that's what shows up for all of us. Hold on, I got to turn my notifications off. My kids just texted me and I was like, what happened? I mean, he texted me, but I just make do not disturb until this evening. So when I hear Cheryl say things like that, the invitation beyond practice stuff, which I'm happy to talk about, right? Because what we do is really integrate those two things. There's a part of it that's like, hey, Claire, you've got two kind of audiences and I'm making this up, right? And a bunch of random clients. Like you can push that cart up the hill, but it'd be a whole lot more efficient if we picked one and really, right, put all our bets on that particular one. Hey, niche firms grow 2 to 3 times faster. They brand better, market better. They have higher conversion rates, right? They have a higher percentage of quality. Like we can do all the data. And you know what I know is that until you're actually ready to make that decision and take that to lean in to the future, which requires change, we're going to sit back on our seat, if you will. And it's not our intention. It's how we're hardwired. And then it's how we are socially conditioned oftentimes as women. We're hardwired to play it safe, right? Our limbic system, which is back here in our brain, is running the show 90% of the time, right? Your amygdala lives there. It has one job. Do you know what that job is? Don't die. That's the job. Don't die. Now, the problem is that's the part of your brain that's running the show most of the time. Your prefrontal cortex, I call it your Einstein brain, is where your logical thinking, hey, I want to double my business and take more time off. How am I going to do that, right? It sits in the future. It plans. It's the rational brain. The limbic system is an emotional brain, and it holds everything from a feeling state, right? That if that was good, we want to do more of it. If that is bad, we want to do less of it. The issue is when you're hardwired for survival, not dying is not the same as truly living, right? Getting by in your practice is not the same thing as growing a wildly successful practice and a life that you love that delivers deep value to clients, right? That runs an excellent business and you get to enjoy the ride and the reward along the way. Like everybody's like, yeah, Steph, we want that. I'm like, great, go get it. And then the question is truly, right? Mary's laughing, but it's true. You're all intelligent, capable. You've gotten people to give you millions of dollars. They trust you with it. You have big brains. You're delivering great advice. Like, why wouldn't you be capitalizing on all of that and really stepping into all of your possibility? Boldly, proudly, without apology or hesitation. You should be able to tell me, who are my clients? Here's the value I add. Here are the fees that I charge. Here's the process that I go through, without apology or hesitation. And if the person on the other end says no, instead of feeling bad and rejected and like we're lack, how about we just acknowledge that they are not the thing that great clients are? Aside from meeting your profile, an amazing client will be 3 things every time: motivated, able to see the value, and happy to pay your fees. If they are not those 3 things, they're not a great client. Well, so, Tanya, one of our advisors, says some will, some won't. So what? So who's next? Yeah. And that's easy when, if you're like, oh, your brain is like, oh, that's easy if you have a pipeline. Well, how do you think those advisors got the pipeline? They got the pipeline by getting clear, getting focused, and getting to work, doing the things, right? Like imagine a wall with 100 levers on it. So Elise, if I went into your practice, right? So the example that I use is like a race car, which is bad because I know nothing about cars, and my husband's like, don't do that. So I do it anyway, right? So yeah, truly, like I'm the girl, like if you're like, you can't do that, I'm like, oh, watch me. So race cars, when they want a race car to go faster, right? Elise, do we go like, oh, let's get all our friends on the team and let's push it on the track faster? It's a lot of effort, right? That's not what they do when they want to optimize the performance of a race car. They bring it in, they take it off the track, pause and reflection. We like to call this planning, right? Clarity planning. They open the hood, which means they're really getting under what is really happening, and they're evaluating the individual components. And then they're identifying which of those components are working in the right, like optimized performance, which of those are neutral, and which of those are underperforming. And they'll identify those, right? And then each specialist will go in and tweak it until that car gets 1 or 2 seconds better. Now, for us, it's not 1 or 2 seconds. It's, more clarity, more confidence, picking that profile, building out our operations, building out right specialized service model, leveraging our time. Those are the components that we have to play with. So we have at Limitless, we call them the 9 peaks, right? You each have a climb. So our theme this year is crush your climb. Like, where are you? What's your personal mountain? It doesn't have to be a $5 million practice or a 200, like whatever it is to you is totally okay. Our job is to sit in the space of getting clear. What is it that I want to build and why? Growth for the sake of growth. Like, we're hardwired. I know, right? My whole story is like, oh, I spent 20 years being the best at what I did, right? I'll get better. I'll be on the magazine cover. I'll write the book. All great things, by the way. But in reflection, I was like, oh, all that striving was my search for significance, right? I thought making money would give me meaning. Turns out those things don't really correlate. And so I think, to Cheryl's point, there's so much that we could talk about here, but what I would pause and ask you to reflect on is, are you capable? Are you adding value? Do you have a version of more and better that you're not yet living and working? And the question is, can you put yourself in the place to receive it? So to Cheryl's point about feedback, how many times, you all will love this, you'll start to pay attention. How many times a day do you say, sorry for everything? My daughter, so I'm really trying to break this habit. Like, she'll put something on the counter. I'll be like, oh, that goes over here. And she's like, sorry. And I'm like, hold on, sweetie, you're 11. You don't need to apologize for not knowing. I'm like, sorry, I'm trying to teach her. Sorry is for when you have, truly offended someone, made a mistake. I was like, so save it for when it really counts. But notice throughout your day, women are far more likely to do it than men, by the way. Everything we go, sorry. And so we sit in this place, if we're not careful, of couching ourselves, of apologizing, of sitting in that second chair, not stepping into our full potential, because 1, we haven't gotten clear on what it is we really want to accomplish. 2, we have to get our mindset to a place where we believe that it's possible and we can take a positive course of action. Like, what am I actually going to do with this information to improve my experience? And so we sit back, we apologize, and it's because our brains are actually hardwired, right? So by the time we're 35, we are 95% conditioned habits and thought patterns. Our mindset, right? You get up every day, you put your feet on the floor, you grab your phone, you go to the bathroom, like it's the same every single day, because we are, for all practical purposes, on autopilot. And this is what the neuroscience says. And I get so excited about these conversations. We have 60,000 thoughts a day on average. My husband would argue that I'm fully pegging the peak. Like, 80% of those thoughts are negative, ladies. They're negative. This is what legit, like Harvard Mind Body and real science. Of those 80% of our thoughts that are negative, 95% of them are on a replay loop in the back of our mind. So imagine there's a curtain in your mind, right? Your Einstein brain is conscious, right? I'm on a call, I see you, you're thinking things, but behind the curtain, your belief systems are kicking in. I'm an imposter. I'm not good enough. People who make money are bad, right? We all grow up with these stories. The only exceptions, because some people are like, oh no, that doesn't apply to me. I'm like, actually, there are only 2 exceptions to not having beliefs. And the science says most of our beliefs, right, are holding us back. You're a sociopath or a psychopath. Those are the only 2 exceptions. If you are not one of those things, then you have those quiet thoughts, those inner voices that are like, you can't, you shouldn't, you don't know how, that's not going to work. If you do that, then, right, fill in the blank. If I say no to that prospect referred by the COI, if I say no, I'll never get another client from that person. All my clients will leave me. I'll get eaten by a hungry tiger and I'll die. That's what happens in your brain in a 1/5 of a second. Good examples. Have any of you ever gotten, or just imagine yourself in this spot? Your largest client calls, leaves a message, but no indication as to why. What's your first thought?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I've asked that question of like probably 100,000 advisors, and every time it is 100%, I can bet my kids' lives on it. The answer is going to be, oh crap, something's wrong, or I'm going to get fired. Why would that be your first thought? So someone has said to you, Clara, hey, Claire, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, it's a little fuzzy. Claire, someone is, yes, it's a joy of being 49. Someone says to you, hey, Claire, I'm going to give you all my money. I've worked my entire life for this is it. Can you please take care of it? And you said, I would happily do that. And you can trust me. And I will be here for you should you need me. You have a question, you have a concern, you do not hesitate. You pick up that phone. I am your trusted advisor. I want to be sitting in the seat right next to you. Right? Isn't that what we in some form say to our clients? Mm-hmm. And they agree with us. Yes, Claire, you're awesome. Here's real money. Why would our brain immediately go to, you messed up, something's wrong, you're going to get fired? Why would our brains not immediately go to, of course he's calling me, I'm his advisor. How awesome is it that he actually picked up the phone, he or she picked up the phone and called me? They must need something. That's great, because when they need something, I could just show up and be smart and add value, or be a good listener, or be like whatever it is. Even if the client is upset or unhappy or going to challenge me, that's okay, because I know who I am. I know the value I add. I can confidently handle that, even in a challenge, because that's what I get paid the big bucks for. If it were easy, everybody would do it. So I'm going to pick up that phone call, clear and conscious and committed to being a good listener, to answering the question, and to confidently sitting in that space, whatever the issue is, because that's what I promised the person on the other end of that message pad. Like, why would we not sit in that space? And the reason we don't sit in that space is because, right, I call it the caveman brain, is hardwired to scan for threats. No one comes out of the cave and goes, oh, it's so amazing. They come out of the cave and they're like, are there berries? Are there lions? Okay, how do I not die today? And that is genuinely, so the science says that we spend 70% of our time in a stress state. Stress is, I'm busy, I don't like what's on my task list, I feel overwhelmed. My daughter's off at a dance competition today, I'm not there. Husband, like, I got up this morning, I'm like, okay, I got to call like right at the time, like I got to make sure, like, and I felt myself like, I'm not, like, there's no stress here. Like, I'm at a great conference, I'm at the Four Seasons, my husband is awesome, he's got, he's handling the whole day, like 4 different schools he's got to shepherd around, right? He calls me when she's like, everything's going great, but you're like, oh my God, I got to make sure everything's okay. What if something goes wrong? So the littlest things will put us into a stress state. And the issue is when we go into stress state, we are in a light version of the caveman mode, fight or flight. And when we're there, the blood in our brain. So the science says we spend 70% or more of our time in a stress state. That was pre-COVID, by the way. It's probably higher now, and it was definitely higher during. When we're in a stress state, our conscious thoughts, like the rational thinking, awesome part of our brain, literally shuts down. Why? So I'm sitting across from a prospect, Elise or Elizabeth, right, is like, oh, here I am. I'm going to add all this value. I've talked to you on the phone. I've Zoomed with you or in person for an hour and a half. I've gone through your situation. I've told you what I can do. Here's all the value that we can add. And that prospect looks you in the eye and says, gosh, Elizabeth, that's great. We would love that. Love all that value and awesome sauce that you were just telling us about. There's just one problem. We think it's just a little bit less valuable than you do. So Elizabeth, could I have all of that awesome sauce? Could you give me your undivided attention, the benefit of all of your expertise without hesitation for 75% less? And we'll just not tell all those other clients who weren't smart enough to ask, like, go me. And so I love what you're doing. I just don't think it's worth what you think it's worth. Would you, will you just be as excited as with everyone else when you come to, when I call you and take you on as a client? Elizabeth, what would you say? You'd be like, hell no, I'm not going to do that. That's a bad proposition. Here's the thing, ladies. That's what you do every time you say yes to a prospect that asks for a discount, because they're essentially looking you in the eyeball and they're saying, I don't agree with the value that you deliver. I think it's worth less. And we capitulate and go to their side of the fence. It's insane. It would be like me going to Burger King and being like, I don't even know why I said Burger King. There's a Burger King in my town. Going to Burger King and being like, yeah, one of those offers, but I only want to pay 75% because I don't think it's worth what it's worth. And it would be like the guy behind the counter being like, okay, hey, Cheryl, and I were talking about a situation prior to this, just different experience, where someone, like, it was a man was like, this is the value. It's this much money. And if you don't like it, go find an answer. There was no accommodating. Now, I'm not saying guys don't suffer. Like, trust me, our guy clients suffer from all the same issues, honestly, right? Imposter syndrome, like, truly, that's the work that we do. So it's not a male female thing, it's a brain thing. But what I notice is that women, as a general rule of thumb, are less confident stepping into the uncertain. And that's what growth and change require. It requires a breakdown. By definition, when a flower grows, right, it's breaking things down in order to come up. And we, by nature, are nurturers who don't like to break things down. We like to wrap our arms around them and love on them and fix them. Again, generalizing. But sometimes we just got to come in and be like, what needs to be done here? And we don't often sit in that space with the level of clarity that we need, because when we get in that stress mode, our brain is in as a version of fight or flight. When that happens, the blood literally leaves our prefrontal cortex where it's needed to think, and it flows to our heart and our organs. Why? Because what do you do in fight or flight when you're a caveman?
Your adrenaline's pumping.
Right. So sitting across from the prospect, if Elizabeth was like, bam, that's really poor form. Very, you're not going to get that client. If you run out of the room, also not going to get the client, frowned upon. So the only option, which is the third option, is freeze. And our brain says, make this discomfort, make the threat go away as fast as possible. I can't hit the guy and I can't run away. So I guess yes is the fastest way out of this situation. And you, like, a week later, you're kicking yourself in the butt. You're like, oh my God, why did I do that? And where it's the client that later you're like, oh, I knew, right? As for the discount, I should have known. So the real question is, we can talk about practices, like we got scripts, we got processes, and like we can do how to solve for that functionally all day long. My question to you is, why do you tolerate it? Why do we tolerate our, I don't want to say mediocrity because it's not the right word, but sort of I call it being uncomfortably comfortable. Like, where most of us are in a spot, at least when people come to us, they're like, hey, doing good, but there's a more and better that calls to you, whether it's revenue or income or profits. Our whole thing is, right, success isn't success if you don't have the time and freedom to enjoy it. So what the reflection is, where are you in your practice? Where would you like to be? If I said you can have any practice that you want, I've built bazillion-dollar firms. I've built amazing $300,000 firms. It's just a model, right? Success leaves clues. It's utterly available to you. The question is, what do we want? And then how do we get in a clear, conscious, and confident state so that we can sit in that space and say, oh, I'm here. I want to be here. What do I need to account for? Oh, I need to right size the client base. I need to make sure all my clients are profitable. I need to fine tune my brand. I need a more disciplined sales process to get my conversion rate to 70 or 80%. I need to, right, hire a team member to, like, whatever it is, that's like a lever. It's like a piece of the car that we just take out and we tweak it and we put it back. That's never the hard part. It's what we think and feel about the changes that accelerate or decelerate us into that next level of success. So I'll pause there because that was a lot, but I just want you all to sit in a space of, how do I confidently lean into creating my next level of success, not for the AUM plaque, but for, like, what elevates me? How do, like, what lights me up and gives me joy, and then gives me the income, time, and freedom to live and work on my terms. And I just don't think we should accept anything less than that for ourselves. And it's not like perfect. I'm constantly doing that work too. So I'll pause there. How does that land with you all? Does it resonate? Does anything come up for you when you think, oh, that might be me?
Okay. So first of all, Stephanie, I think that you had listened into my phone conversation right before this, because I was just on with my team about getting rid of certain clients, cleaning out. And when you said that and called my name on saying you got two different target markets, I'm like, were you on the call with me? It was so that was great, because I think that is definitely something early on in business, people take on just about everything. I've held on to some clients on some work that I no longer do, and it's time to just let go. So I think that just hearing that right there, I was like, okay.
Yeah, the fact that I can recount that means you're not the only one. It's pretty common. But those are those places, I want you to just ask yourself, where have I paused? It's not like, oh, I messed up. right? We do, obviously, like there's incremental decisions. The issue with the clients and the fees and the exceptions is, as you all know from the markets, consistency compounds. So when you are consistently shrinking yourself, we call it having a case of the smalls, right? Sitting back, shrinking yourself, not standing in your value and your worth, not taking confident action in your business to just pull the levers you need to pull, build the process, hire the person, fire the person, whatever it is, raise the fees, put them on the website, don't. People get really hung up on that. And I'm like, whatever, we'll just figure it out. Like if it doesn't work, we'll fix it. But it's how we feel going into that. One, if you don't feel inspired and empowered to do more, like it's available and possible and you're capable, your brain will be like, no, we're not going to try. We're good here. Like you might be like, oh, I want to grow, but your brain's like, yeah, not really, because we're going to have to leave the cave. And hey, the cave, so we call it rent and ramen, right? My short stint at college, I was like, I need to pay my rent and I need to be able to eat ramen. Like I remember it, right? Because I moved out at 17. I was taking care of myself. If I didn't eat, like if I didn't make the money, there was nobody taking care of me. So I was like, rent and ramen, how do I make that happen? The problem is rent and ramen is a survival mode. So think about the four, I've kind of noticed, we've been talking about this at Limitless. We just did a call on our relationship to money. The four modes that I've noticed are one, survival. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're out of survival mode, by the way. I retired with millions of dollars and I was still in survival mode. That was the work that I did on the beach, and it's why I'm retired. It doesn't have to be that way. You can actually have incredible sex and actually enjoy it. You can go home at night and be present with your kids. You can decide to double and be like, okay, let's do that. It's not going to be perfect, but I know the path. I will find a way, or I will make one. So one of my favorite exercises, so I'm going to ask you guys if you want to play a game. Take a piece of paper and draw a line across it. Above that line, draw a plus, and below that line, draw a minus. Above the line is what I call your success state. I'm not Carl and I joke. I'm like, his stuff is like, he can sign it and sell it for a lot of money. I just have notes to go in the trash can. And someone's like, can you sign that? I'm like, no, that's scribble. I'm not signing that. Right. Below that line is your stress state. And I don't know if you can see this. I love this visual because you'll remember it. So around, everyone's like, oh, the line, mind your line. I should write that book. That should be the book, Mind the Line. Success state, Claire, when you set up your practice. Elise, when you were like, oh, I'm going to do this. Ashley, when you're like, I'm going to raise my fees because I'm worth it. That's above the line. Above the line from a state perspective. State's kind of how we feel in our body, right? You feel like confident and empowered, like you just worked out and you're like, I'm awesome sauce. Or you just had a tough day with a client or someone left and you just feel utterly dejected, right? That's above and below the line. Above the line is where all the awesome happens. That is where your creativity, your confidence, your abundance, your joy, your inspiration, your yes, I can and I will, everything is figure outable. We're going to do this. I got this. We've all been in that state. We love that state. The problem is, as we talked about, our brain says we're down here 70% of the time. And what's down here from a state perspective? You all, like everyone, male or female, resonates with this. Fear, uncertainty, doubt, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, very popular, right? For people that own businesses, overwhelm, judgment, blame, criticism. And you know who most of that judgment, blame, and criticism is directed at? Us. Man, if you were talking to your best friend, the way that you talk to yourself, that person would not be your best friend. We are so hard on ourselves. And it's because when we get here, our brain, if you ever laid around or thinking about like a problem that you just want to solve and you're like, this sucks, and you just think about it. And like a week later, you're still thinking about it. And 3 weeks later, you're still thinking about it. It's because you're below the line in one of those states and you can't get here from here. You have to get into an elevated state. There's biochemistry. When you're below this line, when you're in a stress state, your brain is flooding your body with adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. Those are like, go fight the tiger chemicals, right? That's not where we make clear and conscious. Do I really want to say yes to this prospect? Doesn't happen from that place, right? It happens above the line where we're like, I have anticipated this situation because it's like 100% predictable that someone will ask you for a discount. I have asked myself, what are my fees? Do I feel they're fair? Do I have a script that I can confidently recite? Because the pathway in your brain is panic unless you give it a better pathway, a new and better system. The new and better system is, I'm going to rehearse the script. So I call it scaffolding. While you're working on the mindsets and the beliefs, because that's really where the answer is, you can still build Think about the scaffolding they put outside of buildings when they're building them so that, right, they can go up. It's like crutches that kind of help you. Scripts are fabulous. We do this with the $1 billion CEOs. We do scripts. And it's okay, when that prospect says, can I have a discount? Your brain goes into panic mode because it doesn't know what to do. But what if you had a to-do? What if you had written a script that says, Bob, Jane, I can really appreciate that question. What I can tell you is, right, we deliver a lot of value to our clients. As we've talked about, our fees aren't the least expensive. They're also not the most expensive, but our clients, right, tell us that they're really fair for the value that we deliver. And we understand that that's not necessarily in everyone's budget. We've developed a specialized expertise, and we feel comfortable charging for that. And we recognize that might not be a fit for you. We just want you to know, we think you're delightful. Planning would be great for you. I won't take it personally. Would you prefer to be I can refer you to some resources that have a lower budget price point. People are like, oh, no. Or they're like, yes, yes, yes. And if they say yes, 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 you should not feel one iota bad. If you show up for the right client, now, if you're trying to be everything to everyone, it still works, by the way, it's just less effective. And you tell a clear and confident story, which we can talk about, like, how do you actually do that? And you do your job. You have one job, ladies. That's it. Your job is to give people the information they need to make good choices about their financial life and the opportunity to hire you to do it. That's it. If they say no, when you've told a clear story, you know your value. If they say no, it does not mean that something went wrong. Reframe from the coach. It actually means something went really right, because you've laid it all out there and like, that's not for me. And we beat ourselves up instead of just saying, actually, it is all about fit. I call them the just right clients. I want 50 or 100 or 150 clients that utterly support my success, that are motivated, able to see the value, happy to pay. Like, I only need 100 of those people. Why would I take anyone? This is the clarity part. If you know that you're building $1 million our thing at Limitless, it doesn't have to be this way. We just call it the $1 million 100-day off practice. People get all like, oh my God, Stephanie, that's so greedy. How are you taking 100 days off? And I'm like, first of all, it's Fridays and 8 weeks a year. It's not exactly like, oh my God, it's just a little bit of math. Like, truly, if you can't take Fridays and 8 weeks off a year, to me, that, like, again, doesn't mean you have to. Like, some people have kids or other, I was talking to one of our clients and he's like, my kids are gone. I did all the soccer games. He's like, I just want to crush it right now. I'm like, great, work 50 hours a week if that's what you want to do. But choosing it is very different than feeling compelled to do it, because the stories on our brain are like, you're not good enough. You got to make more. Like, that's survival mode. The next mode is relief. We, by the way, make a ton of decisions down here. When that prospect asks for the discount, when the phone rings, we go straight here. We're just hardwired. The work is realizing there's a line, which is what I love about this. Now you know, and that your job is to stay above it. When you're above the line, your brain is flooded with dopamine and serotonin, happy chemicals, clear, conscious chemicals. And from this place, we can make conscious decisions. Claire, what's your model? I call it the model practice. So, right, the questions we can ask: how big do we want to be? Just because, like, why do we want to be that size? What do we want in terms of lifestyle, income, time off? Right. So there's like some basic questions you can ask. And then you look at that client base and you're like, does it fit? And it doesn't mean you have to rip off the Band-Aid and fire half your clients instantaneously. It means that you get clear about the impact of what you're seeing on that report and in that data. And the impact says, theoretically, if you've ever, right, we've all got exceptions, right? Hey, my minimum is 5,000, but I took that client at 3,000, right? That's a below the line decision if you consciously set your fee. What if I said to you, right, habit changing, just like the script, if I've got the script and I say it, write out your script, say it 30 times. Say it until you can say it like your middle name. That means that the neural pathway is there. Now the track is laid so that when that happens, your brain doesn't go, oh my God, your brain goes, oh, right, fine, I'm going to use that script. And by like the third or fourth time, your brain is like, whatever, let's just do this. We know how this goes. Like, hey, Bob and Jane, I really appreciate that question. We understand that, like, our fees aren't the least. Like, how many times in my life have I said? I probably said that thing 5,000 times. I say it like, because I've said it that many times. And so that's the value of when we get below the line, we're not clear, we're not conscious, we're reacting. And when we react, we create compromise. It's a crisis of confidence. We make the exception. We don't act we can think of 1,000 examples. So Claire, as you think about that, what's the ideal practice for you? And how does, right, your current client base, like how does that sit? And where do you need to right size or make adjustments if you're just looking at it unemotionally?
Yeah, I mean, good point on that. I've let go of just because they've long term doesn't mean that I need to continue serving them. So I think that's the
do you have that like feel bad guilt thing? Like, oh, they're my clients and I'm leaving them and I feel bad about it?
I don't know if I'd said I feel bad about it. It is that comfort.
Yeah.
No, it's the mac and cheese that, it's that comfort. And then I do is it really taking up that much time? But you know what? I've outgrown them, and they, that my services, I'm not giving them the best then because I've outgrown them, and I can certainly put them to somebody else that will be a good fit for them.
Yeah. And so notice where our brain goes, like, oh, I this, or oh, I that, right? Are those questions, like, are those thoughts and feelings, do they really serve us? Sitting in the seat of a conscious practice owner, right, or advisor, and saying, hey, I need to make business decisions that serve my client's interests, but also my own. There's more than we just in this business in particular, women especially tend to be, right, service hearted. So we want to nurture and love, and we feel bad, and we want to be helpers. Guys are like that too, but women like really want to be helpers. And the issue is it's in service of what? So we tell ourselves it's in service of revenue or this, but then it's really in service of, to Claire's point, our comfort, right? Not wanting to challenge ourselves, not being willing to be a little bit more aware and get curious. Why am I taking on those clients? Even though, right, I'm way past, like, billion-dollar firms like are still making exceptions. And I'm like, wow, you're a little bit past rent and ramen. And it's because we never get out of survival mode. After survival mode is relief. Like, okay, I can pay the rent and I can eat ramen. Some people get stuck there. Next is contentment. Like, we've created an income and a space that we feel good about. Sometimes we get stuck there. One of my clients last week was like, is contentment like I'm content, or am I just plateaued and lazy? And I was like, well, first of all, that's a story in your head right there that, sitting around somehow means you're like a lazy slacker. And I was like, you've worked hard. You have the right to earn it. The next phase is expansion. And we will all, at some level, when you get to contentment, go back and forth, in my experience, between contentment and expansion. I went to contentment for 5 years on a beach in Costa Rica. I was like, I retire. You guys, I'm not expanding in that professional way. I'm over here expanding personally. And then after 4 or 5 years, I was like, okay, my brain is bored now. You can only run the PTA for so many years. What are we going to do? Right? Back to expansion mode. Right? Get my schedule down to like 25, 30 hours a week, doing this work that I absolutely love. Contentment. Right? So like, it's a constant up level. It's not this huge, right, massive shift. It's how do I get from it, when am I operating in survival mode in my current business? Because there's places we all are. And if you can identify those spots, pull them out of the car. Anyone ever cut a tomato with a dull knife?
Yeah,
Katie,
it's very difficult.
And it's awful, right? Like, and every time, aren't you like, oh, this is awful? Like, you literally are having that and you're like, the knife is dull. It's messy. You got to clean up your butt crap. Like, that's what we do. We operate with a dull knife. What happens when you cut with a sharp knife, like a beautiful sharp knife? Katie, it's like magic, isn't it? And I don't know about you ladies, maybe it's just me, but when that knife is sharp and it cuts, I like have a little moment of celebration on the inside. I'm like so happy. Tomato, right? Because we know by contrast that other experience is not that fun. That's our practice in our life. Like, there's so much, I call it efforting, where we show up and it's like, I'll do this, and we're working over the problem. I'll take that client, then I've got to do, right, another client. So if that client's, a $3,000 client and your minimum is $5,000, being clear and conscious would actually be like, wow, I need to write a check for $2,000 to myself and give it away every year that client is here. Claire, would you do that? Would you be like, yeah, Bob, here's my check to this? No, but that's what we're doing. It's those incremental compromises that we make from below the line that compound. And then one day we wake up and I had a client had an $800,000 practice, had a few fee exceptions. That's code for go look. $80,000 in exceptions, annualized revenue. Now, he was 38 years old. We just went to 58, which is 20 years. He's very likely to work past that. That's $1.6 million in revenue. 7% annual interest, that's $2.36 million. Right? What's the monetary, like what's the multiple on that in evaluation? Right now we're talking about millions and millions of dollars because we made a few fee exceptions, cutting the tomato with the dull knife. So that's the invitation. Can we look at our practices and say, am I clear and conscious about and committed to what I want? Like, am I willing to do that work? Then it's, what do I need to account for? Do I need to get clear about my client profile? Do I need, my conversion rate's not where I want. I need to look at my marketing funnel. I need to look at my sales process. I need to look at my story. Do I need to do market research on my fees? Like when I say those things, you're like, oh, that's very doable. Like build a sales process, do some market research. Like, okay. So it's the space that we're in. I call it the invisible forces. It's like we want that more and better, but we're like, I don't quite, like we procrastinate. We tell ourselves we can't, we shouldn't, we don't know how. Those are all strategies of your brain. Procrastination is the most popular. It's your brain's way of saying, yeah, let's not leave the cave. We've got berries, we've got some water. It's not a perfect cave, but we're not going to die here. And the other part of your brain, the soul, conscious, inspired, above the line part of you is like, Claire, but there's that crack in the mountains at the end of the valley. And it's like, it looks amazing. I think we should go try it. And your brain's like, no, we don't know if there's food. We don't know. Are there berries? Are there tigers? Like things are okay right here. We've got our rent and our ramen. And when we get above the line more of the time, it doesn't mean you have to grow or not. We just get clear about what and committed to what we actually want to create. And then we can take conscious action to do it. So can you, how does that land with each of you? Is there a place that you can think about where do you have the clarity of what your ideal model practice is? Like if you could do, right, wave the magic wand and build any practice that you want, what would you build and why? So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, because it was funny as you were talking, a couple of things. One is a marker. When I put my marketing hat on and I ask individuals to describe their favorite client to work with, the answers come back and they're so mediocre at best, being honest. And nobody ever says on that discovery call when we talk, clients that pay their bills on time, or clients who don't ask me for discounts, or clients that I think we need to get really clear, like you said, about what are we after, because I have said to several of the people in this group before that, have you ever had a phone call from someone you love that needed an emergency pickup at the grocery store, and you say, I'm driving. Yeah, I've got a green jacket on. Everybody's got a green jacket that day, friends, because you've created this blind spot to find that person. And we need to do the exact exercise in our business, figuring out what's in that success state. Like one of mine, I'll tell you what, I'll tell on myself. I built a business so that I never had to work on a Friday. And guess what? I worked on Fridays every Friday this year. And I was really aggravated. So when I looked at 2023, I don't work Fridays. They are marked off. No one's getting on my calendar because my success state included, I will never work on a Friday again because I wanted that time just for me.
So we have what we call the 5 freedoms of limitless advisors. And right now, 25, 27 years of doing this, I swear, this is what, at some level, this is what I think everyone's shooting for. Freedom number 1, work with purpose on your terms, right? My purpose is helping elevate people's performance and potential, right? So they can elevate their work, wealth, and well-being. I love that. I could do it all day long. My terms are, right, 25 hours a week from the beach in Costa Rica or Park City or wherever I happen to be at that moment. And if that doesn't work for you, that's cool. You just don't get to be in my space. Like, that's all right. There's 8 billion people on the planet. Freedom number 2, do work that you love. I don't just mean planning. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, if we take that line exercise, this works for everything, by the way, and we change it to time. And I said, draw a plus and a minus, and above the line is everything that you love to do that's energy creating and revenue producing, and you could do it all day long. No, like, yes, go me. Everything below the line are those tasks that you don't like doing, the ones you constantly procrastinate, or when you're doing them at 7 minutes and you want to put a pencil in your ear, right? And most of the time there's 3 or 4 things up here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff down here. So the quickest way I know to get to success is time is your greatest revenue and happiness producing asset. Use your time better. But if we spend our time doing energy creating, revenue producing work, guess what happens? We grow, we get more profitable, we get more fulfilled. 3, with people that you enjoy, both clients and your team. This is the human experience you've got. Why would you want to compromise there? 4, enjoying all the financial abundance that you desire because, hey, why not? It's all available. And freedom number 5, which I had to retire to the beach in Costa Rica to figure out, is live a life of happiness, purpose, and contribution. Like, you just want to, if you do those 4 things well, you're in a place to along the way and right as you go to really squeeze as much as you can out of this ride. So I don't know what happens before we die or after, right? We've all got views and opinions. Here's what I'm certain of. No matter what you believe, this ride is, right, a very short period bookended between 2 eternities. That's it. We can have a long debate about what happens in those eternities. You're dirt, it's dark, you're in heaven, like whatever. This period of time is a bookend between 2 eternities. What do we want to do with it? Like, I want to squeeze. I had enough bad experiences as a child and enough striving to make success that wasn't satisfying that I was like, the second half of this game, I'm really going to take it up a notch, right? I'm going to lean in, no fear. I'm retired. I was like, I'm going to do cool shit with cool people who are doing good work on the planet. That was my business plan. And so what's your version of those 5 freedoms as you think about what's the business and life that you want to create?
I'm kind of curious if anybody be willing to share what's up in minding their line, like what's in that success space for all of you. For me, it was for sure. I went right back to what I started to work for myself was I don't want to work on Fridays. And I know it sounds I don't care what it sounds like, to be honest. For me, it was a big thing because I wanted to have just that time for me.
Well, I just want to say, do you notice how Cheryl started to almost like pull back? Like,
yeah,
it's an excusing strategy. Like, I somehow have to justify or rationalize my desire to take Fridays. No, you don't. You just get to say, I'm over 18, independent, and I'm paying for my own rent and ramen. I'm choosing not to work Fridays.
Yeah.
When the vision is clear, the decisions get easy because when you carve off that time, the Latin root of the word decision and commitment literally means to cut off, as in to cut off any other possibilities. So when Cheryl makes a clear, conscious, committed decision, hey, I don't like the way this is working, I'm going to improve it. Now she's in that space of what do I need to do? She got clear about that. And now it's the commitment phase. When we do that, we work everything else around it. And amazingly, everything works around it just fine. If a client's like, Cheryl, I will only be a client if I can talk to you on Fridays, Cheryl is like, here's the line. No, like, hey, I really appreciate it. I would love to work with you and my whatever. And like, can we sit in that space and really own the reality that we want to create for ourselves and get clear about what we have to change?
And the line is the boundary. I mean,
Absolutely.
I know we don't like to hear that. I think people have a really negative connotation with the word boundary, but that's what the line is. It's our boundary. And for me, I got real clear this year with the help of people like Steph, counseling and other things that what do you want? What do you want? Like, if you ever watch The Notebook, when he goes, what do you want? What do you want? And that's when she laughed because she's seen the movie, but that's exactly what it was. I started writing on my whiteboard. What is it that I want? I want those Fridays to take my grandkids out to lunch. I want those Fridays to just go get my hair done or my nails or whatever I want to do. If I just want to sit and watch nothingness, just for me.
And I think that's really, I think that's really interesting, Cheryl, because I think so many of us don't stop to ask that question, right? What do I want? There's always this, what should I want? What do others expect me? What does society think that I want? And it's that getting quiet on a beach in Costa Rica or wherever to say, what do I want? And what do I want? And I want to be okay with that and own that. And that's my thing or things.
We call it in Limitless. We start every year with everyone's big why. Why are you here? What do you not like? Oh, I want to grow my AUM 20. Like, okay, great. We can all do that. Why are you here? Right. So it's things like, I want to make 100,000 more a year so my wife can quit her miserable job and stay home with our daughters because it's what she would love more than anything. Or, hey, I want to be able to work, like, sure, I'm going to take Fridays off so that I have a lot of time. Like, that's our job. So when we get really clear on the big why, so my big why is to live a big, bold, badass, beautiful life that lets me live and work on my terms and empower other people to do the same. That's my mojo. Like, that's my why. So when you have good days or bad days, you're like, wow, it's really about this. Then we build a framework. When I build a house, you're like, oh, I would love to have, you have this idea in your head. then you actually have to build the blueprint. And that's where on the other side of like, that's where my model practice kicks in. When you're clear on the why, what's your vision of success at work and in life? And how do you structure that? What kind of schedule do you want? What kind of client? It's just a series of decisions that we make. And then you build the blueprint. And then Claire, Tammy, Katie, then we sit in the space with the blueprint and we go, okay, where's the gap between, right, this client base, Claire, and this client base? And the second that you can do that, you have a roadmap for change. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to sit in the space of deciding, right, how you're going to navigate that. But in that moment, you instantly know, if I want 100 ideal clients and I've got 150 of some ideal and some this and some that, what's the logical business case here, right? Emotion aside, caveman brain checked. It's, I got to right size the client base in some, right? I got to look at the right kind of client. How many clients do I want to serve? What revenue do I need to generate to hit my financial goals? What kind of transition does that mean? How am I going to manage it over time? Am I going to transition them at once? Am I going to hire a service advisor? Am I going to do a referral, a solicitor relationship? Am I going to sell them? Am I going to just one-off them? Like there's 9 levers on the wall and you're like, do I do this? Do I do this? Or I do this? And when we get really clear and conscious, it's almost like the background noise goes away and we're just left with, what do I need to do? And then on the other side of that is what's keeping me from doing it? Because we're like, oh, I need to double my fees. And we're like, okay, then that's the work. The work isn't deciding to double the fee. The work is getting yourself to a place where you've got that clarity and consciousness and you commit to doing it. And then you create a course of action that you feel confident about. Like, hey, for every new dollar that we get in, we're going to transit, and in the ideal client, we're going to transition out an equivalent number of dollars from the bottom of the client base. So it's like so a lot of times you might take a year to neutral, but that's what people think. They almost always grow anyway. But Claire might decide, hey, for every new client that comes on, we're going to transition out an equivalent amount. And based on our current run rate, Claire can calculate exactly how long. We don't tend to do that. We like to do it, of course, at Limitless. Claire can calculate really quickly how long it's going to take her to shift the client base so that she has the right number of clients. And then she's going to be able to, on that same cocktail napkin, be like, well, if it's 100 clients at 8,000, that's 800,000. And if I have okay, that's pretty simple math. Now our job is to do that work. So when you all think about what you're sitting with in terms of possibility, are there places that you can think of where you've held yourself back? It could be at Limitless, we talk about mindset and methods. The mindset is obviously what is behind all of it. There are actual methods. Right? We got to build a great prospect process. We got to have great scripts. We got to have good checklists. We've got to leverage our team and our time. Got to tell a great story. Got to optimize our operations. Got to build a really awesome service model. Those are levers that we pull. They're all do we agree that they're all very pullable?
So what I heard you say, Stephanie, is when we rebalance our own investments, we should be rebalancing our clients.
It's rebalancing the client portfolio.
Yep.
Right. And to your point, and I think we all, if you're not careful, it's easy to suffer from this. I want you to think about a doctor or a lawyer or an architect in a practice. If I'm a lawyer and I'm, 30, I make a certain amount. And then when I'm 40, I have presumably more experience and skill. And do I make the same or do I make more? I make more. And when I'm 50 and I'm partner level material, am I making the same as I did when I was 30 or am I making more? I'm making more. In tracks, right, we elevate. When you own the business and you're in charge of the revenue, it's like, well, if I let them go, I'll feel, but to Claire's point, right, the clients that we start with, as we grow our knowledge and experience and value, it doesn't mean that they'll be clients forever. And we get show me another profession that does that literally locks themselves into no raise and keeping the client forever. So you better choose the right clients in the beginning so we do too much for too many, for too little, for too long. And as a result, we've got good practices that could be great practices that support a really great life. Can we clear that runway of those compromises and really make clear and conscious decisions from that point?
And, really quick on to your point there, Stephanie, about how you reshuffle or rebalance some of those clients, right? Where you're handing them down. One of the really good ways that I think that I've seen some advisors look at that is they find junior planners in those roles that they're helping them build a business that has a trajectory to also build up to the same where they're at too. So, it's interesting because the ones who are doing that, they love the give back feeling of it. Like they're helping someone else, not a great client for me, but for you, perfect client. We're going to set you up for success. And then that person's happy to do that amount for that work at that time in their career.
And so that's it. There are options, right? Claire can keep the clients and she can put that runway. Like, you know exactly what that looks like. She can transition those clients out, she can, say, thank you so much. Here are some options. She can find someone to do a referral relationship with where she takes, maybe 25 or 50% of the revenue over 5 years, which is the equivalent of selling it at 2.5, like whatever it is. She could hire a service advisor and use this revenue to fund that person and free up her time so that she can then be a great catalyst for growth. And we could go on. Like, it's simply getting clear on the options and then saying, okay, Claire, as you look at your ideal life, as you look at your ideal business, how do we right size this portfolio? And that's pretty easy math, quite honestly. It's what we do on the other side of it. Like, okay, what's my plan going to be? What am I going to communicate to the clients? When am I going to communicate it? And having done all of those things hundreds of times, we get so afraid about what the response is going to be. And 99% of the time, it is a non-event. People are like, oh, I have one client who, you go back and you tell clients like, hey, we've always done this for free. We need to charge a fee. Like there's one guy or gal that's like, yeah, everyone else is like, I was wondering why you did all that work for free. Go you. No joke. We had an advisor, he was charging $600 for plans. He's now one of our advisor coaches. So he literally went from 220,000 to $1 million in 5 years. Steady and 40% growth, ideal clients, has so much time. He got his pilot's license, bought a plane, like great success story. But it started with, I guess I can't charge $600 for a plan and have the practice in life that I want. Nope, I can't make that math work. I'm so sorry. I'm not that good. Okay, what's it like? Let's look at the value. Did raise the fees to $6,000? Literally took his clients from 600 to 6,000 over a period of months. And it was funny because we were having this conversation, about what's really holding him back. And I was like, you're really worth, we're having that great conversation. He comes back the next week and he's like, I'm ready. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, I quoted the $600 fee to a couple. And he's like, I can't make this up, Steph. The wife looked at the husband and said, that's like a shitty car payment. Let's do it. And he was like, in that moment, everything you were telling me just like landed. And he was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I've been doing this for $600. And then he did the work. When the vision is clear, the decisions are easy. Do you want right clients who are motivated, able to see the value and willing to pay a fee that you're worth? Yes. Then we're going to need to make some changes. Okay. Then as a coach and a consultant, our job is to help you. You can do it on your own. Our job is to then help you through the process to give you the strategies and the shortcuts that you don't have to go it alone. Like, hey, we've done this 5,000 times. Here's a script. Here's a letter. Here's what you can do. Here are 5 other advisors who've done it that will circle around you and like get on the phone and tell you, Elizabeth, you can totally do this. Here's what happened. You're like, that's what community and coaching helps to foster change, which is what I love about Females in Finance is you have that built in. Not that we wouldn't love you at Limitless, but Cheryl and the group calls like that's the power of community is that we elevate each other in the process. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing at Females in Finance.
Well, and we just adore you. I know we're coming up at time and I want to make certain that we close out, but I'll make certain that we reach out. One thing I'm going to ask all of you to do is please do the homework assignment of understanding what's above and below, like get a sense of that. Cause I am going to come back as I follow up.
You guys want, like you ladies, I keep so English, it's the Anglo-Saxon English, but I'm talking to a room of women and I still say guys, it's so hilarious. So I just have to say you, but we always want to fill in condition. If you would like, we have a mind the line exercise. It's just a cool thing. And when you do those exercises, leverage, draw that line out across a longer piece of paper. Everything that's below your line, draw columns. Those columns are 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or they're people or both. Paraplanner, outsourced VA, marketing agency, etc. Everything below your line. You want to radically change your world? Just do this. Everything below that line, 6 to 18 months, depending on your situation, comes off your pay. Like it's just going to be empty down here, except, you got to look at the financial reports once in a while, just to make sure it's all okay, right? Everything below your line goes to someone else's above the line. You will have the most happy, productive team and organization. You'd be blown away by what you can do if everybody like shows up and just does stuff that gives them joy.
Yep.
Like some people love paperwork and they love making sure it's perfect and that the spreadsheet's filled out. God bless those people. We need them. Right. But we don't want them doing something else. So I hope if you guys want, I will, if you want, there you go again. I'll give Cheryl the line exercise.
Yeah, I was going to tell them that they should also sign up to get your newsletter, your Monday Mojo.
Yes. Yeah. So we have Monday Mojo. So it's thoughts from on high and just like cool resources, strategies, tips, like literally read it. And every
Just
week
follow her work and start connecting with her on LinkedIn and things like that. Seriously, because she's life changing. I sit back and I see some of the things she writes and I'm thinking, you know, it's wonderful. But I know we're right at time and people are going to start dropping for client calls. And I know you've got to speak this afternoon too. I appreciate this so much, Steph. I really do. I can see everybody, it's like resonating and I'm already seeing the ideas percolate, which is nice.
We're at limitlessfa.life. Do join Mojo. Coaching's coming up in 2023 if you're interested. But if you would like a copy of the line exercise and the My Model Practice exercise, just DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Yep.
Or email coaching@limitlessfa.life. Pretty straightforward. And I will be more than happy to share some of those resources with you. Was this helpful to you all?
This is fantastic, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Cheryl, perfect timing. I just, it's like right now was just the perfect time to be hearing this.
No, she is wonderful. I'm amazed every time.
Get clear, then get focused, then get to work. We tend to get to work, dull tomato, right? Dull knife on the tomato. And then we spend all the energy cleaning up the mess. And I say that with absolute love, right? Have been through it all. Like, can we sharpen that knife? So that also, I'm happy to share those resources with you. I so hope this was helpful. Cheryl,
You're the best.
Community. I will see you guys in 2023, a lot more for sure. So thank you so much for the invitation and honoring me with your time. I hope it was helpful.
Absolutely. You're the best. Thank
Guys,
you so much. Take care, friends.
I gotta go school up a room full of men. That's what I gotta go do right now.
There you go. Bye, friends.
Okay.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too.